Methodist College is celebrating 125 years of aiding in the success of aspiring healthcare workers. Joining us this morning to talk about this milestone and some fun events lined up to celebrate is Kayla Banks, Chancellor of Methodist College. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So talk to us about the 125th anniversary.
Yeah, so it's our chance at Methodist College to celebrate 125 years, quite a long legacy of providing exceptional education to future healthcare professionals in our greater Peoria community. You know, it really allows us to reflect on our humble beginnings of, starting as a nurse training program affiliated with a hospital to now being a full 4-year, fully accredited college that offers a variety of bachelor's degrees and master's degrees as well.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about some of those programs.
Yeah, so we offer a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, a Bachelor's in Social Work, and Bachelor's in Health Science, along with a Master's in Nursing Education and Master's pre-licensure in Nursing. We also have a lot of Bachelor's of Nursing completion programs.
Nice.
So for those professionals who have a licensed practical nurse license, they can become a Bachelor's prepared nurse, and similarly with an associate's degree, prepared nurse becoming a bachelor's prepared nurse as well.
Wow, I mean, after all of that hard work, celebration is deserved, right? Especially after
absolutely.
25 years of hard work. So how exactly do you all plan on celebrating?
Yeah, so we kick things off Friday evening with an alumni and friends reception at the college to, really welcome back all of our supporters and alumni back to the college campus and celebrate along with us for our 125 years. And then we turn things right around tomorrow, Saturday morning, with the Edge Run, Everyone Deserves Great Education, a 5K fun run, or a 1.25K walk. And then we follow that with a community carnival right there on the college campus from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So hopefully the rain holds out for us.
Hopefully. I mean, fun. A lot of fun things planned. What is the cost to attend these fun events?
Yeah. So the registration for the alumni and friends reception has passed, but the public events on Saturday, the Edge Run and the Carnival, are both free of charge.
Okay, and let's say someone is considering pursuing a career in healthcare. Why is it important for them to take advantage of this celebration and be there?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to learn more about Methodist College and our affiliation with Carle Health. We offer a program called the Academic Investment Program that offers no out-of-pocket tuition, books, and fees for individuals interested in our nursing programs, and connects them with a professional opportunity at Carle Health after graduation.
Amazing. And unfortunately, somebody's not going to be able to make it, but they will want more information. How can they contact you all?
Yeah, absolutely. We have an open house coming up as well, September 24th. Our application deadline for spring applications is October 1st, but you can find out more information at methodistcol.edu, both for the events this weekend, our upcoming open house, and how to apply.
Oh, Ms. Banks, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
If you or someone you know would like to sit right here where Ms. Banks is, just head to our website, 25newsnow.com. You want to follow the features tab to In the Know, submit the form.